The room felt like it was buzzing, but not in a pleasant way. The PTA banquet tables were crowded with glossy programs and half-full glasses of white wine, the stage microphones squealing between speeches. My twin brother, Daniel, stood confidently near the podium, talking about his daughter's college acceptance as if he'd single-handedly raised the money to get her there. I was half listening, half smiling politely for the benefit of the other parents, when my phone, face down next to my plate, vibrated against the linen tablecloth. At first, I thought it was just another calendar reminder, but when I glanced, my smile froze. Bank alert. Withdrawal of $15,000 from Joint Education Fund account, ending in 4726. The timestamp was from 20 minutes ago, right about when Daniel had excused himself to make a quick call outside. My fork slipped against the china and rattled loud enough that the woman next to me tilted her head in concern. It was our late mother's college fund account. We had promised, in the same room where we'd cried over her will, that it would remain untouched until the first of our kids turned 18. The money was sacred, a mix of Mom's estate and every holiday bonus I'd ever squirreled away. Daniel's voice cut back into focus. With education costs being what they are, sometimes we just have to move faster than bureaucracy. He laughed. People smiled politely. I knew exactly what he was referring to, even if they didn't. My heart pounded so loud that I barely heard my own voice when I called across the table. "Daniel, can I talk to you now?" His eyes flicked to mine, a flash of irritation before the grin reappeared for his audience. I tried to breathe, but the image of that minus sign, the way the digits almost blurred together in my shock, made my chair feel like it was sinking into the carpet. If he'd taken that much without asking, without even a text, what else had he done? When he finally walked toward me, feigning confusion, I could still hear a guest clapping for something he'd said. But for me, the night was already ruined. The number glittered in my mind like a warning flare. And I knew, before he even sat down, that this was just the beginning. Because the real question wasn't just why he took the money. It was what he was going to do when I told him I knew. Shall I write the next chapter? Daniel slid into the seat beside me like we were still teenagers, still sharing stupid inside jokes at boring events. Only this time, his elbow brushed mine, and I felt nothing but ice in my stomach. He leaned in, voice low. "What's your problem? Can't it wait until later?" I tilted the screen of my phone so the glow lit up both our faces. His eyes darted to the bank alert. No flinch, no embarrassment, just a quick inhale through his nose before he looked away toward the buffet table, like the number meant nothing. "You moved $15,000 out of the college fund," I said, forcing each word through clenched teeth. "That money is for both kids. For my son, too." He scratched his cheek, smiling faintly toward someone across the room. When his eyes came back to me, they were colder. "Relax. It's still for college. Just sooner. You weren't exactly in a rush, and Sophie's tuition deposit deadline is in 2 weeks." I reminded him, quietly but firmly, that we had agreed withdrawals required, both of us. That Mom's wish was carved into the fund's title, joint beneficiary account. Equal shares, equal say. "That's a sentimental rule," he said. "This is reality. Josh is only 14. You've got 4 more years before you need anything from that account. Sophie's now. That's the difference between a dream and a missed opportunity." My chest burned. This account wasn't just numbers. It was the last tangible tie to Mom's faith in us to care for each other. Breaking that trust felt like spitting on her memory. But pulling out of the PTA banquet then and there would look dramatic, especially in this crowd of volunteers and mutual acquaintances. So I sat through the speeches, through the polite laughter, pressing my lips until they felt numb, replaying the same thought. If he can take $15,000 without telling me, nothing is stopping him from taking more. The next morning, I dig deeper. Dig into the rules, into the transactions, into why he suddenly needed that much money now. But I already knew the real battle wasn't about the past. It was about stopping whatever was coming next. Shall I write the next chapter? The next morning, I woke up with my jaw aching from the way I'd clenched it all night. Sunlight sliced through the blinds, but it felt cold in my apartment. Before I even made coffee, I sat at the dining table with my laptop and logged into the joint account. The dashboard loaded slowly, as if the bank itself knew I was about to be sickened. I scrolled back through the transactions. There it was, the $15,000 transfer to an account in Daniel's name, time-stamped down to the minute I saw him outside the banquet hall. But that wasn't the only thing that caught my eye. Smaller withdrawals had been happening for months. $500 here, $200 there, all labeled as miscellaneous, sometimes just 2 weeks apart. I recognized some dates. Days we'd had disagreements, mornings after he'd ignored my calls. And now, thinking back, I remembered the first little rip in the fabric. 3 months ago, he'd changed the time of a planning meeting for a fundraiser without telling me, then told everyone I couldn't make it because I was burnt out. Then there were the PTA emails that somehow never arrived in my inbox, but he swore he'd forwarded. That time in February when he borrowed $200 cash for supplies and returned it in crumpled bills weeks later, smelling faintly like beer. I'd brushed all of it off because it was Daniel, my twin. We had shared a crib, a birthday cake every year, fights over the remote, my built-in best friend, or so I'd wanted to believe. My phone pinged with a message from him. Don't spiral over this. Sophie's already counting on the payment. We'll figure it out for Josh later. Smiley face. Something inside me cracked. That breezy little emoji felt like a slap. He wasn't just taking the money. He was rewriting the rules without me. And if I didn't stop this early, later, for my son, could very well mean nothing left at all. But confronting him at a kitchen table, just the two of us, too easy for him to charm, twist, spin. I'd need to catch him where the story couldn't be quietly edited, somewhere public enough for his mask to slip. Shall I write the next chapter? By the time I saw him again, I'd rehearsed exactly what I'd say, and how I'd say it, so I wouldn't let his smirk or dismissive shrug throw me off. But the moment the words left my mouth, he tilted his head like I'd just accused him of stealing a sandwich. We were sitting at the little cafe across from his office, steam curling from our cups. I laid it out plainly. The withdrawals, the history of emergencies, the fact that Mom's savings were not his personal loan fund. He sipped his coffee slowly, then set the cup down like he had all day to respond. You're overreacting, he said finally. It's just moving money around. When your kid needs it, there will be more. I promise. I bit back the urge to laugh. Promise? You broke the first one we ever made about that account. That's when he leaned back, eyes narrowing. You know what your problem is? You act like you're the only one who cares about this family. All those years, I helped pick up Josh from soccer. All the birthday cakes I paid for when things were tight for you. But now? Now you're keeping a spreadsheet of my sins? You've changed. It wasn't just defensiveness. It was gaslighting, plain and sharp. He was trying to twist the roles so I'd feel like the selfish one. He even added, "You've become bitter. That's not a good look, especially in front of family." That jab hit somewhere deep, because I knew exactly what family meant in his tone. Not just blood, the audience. Our siblings, the PTA moms, the cousins who'd side with whoever spun the prettier story. I left that cafe with my hands shaking, not from doubt, but from realizing what he was setting up. a narrative where I was the cold, jealous sister trying to block my niece's education. And if he kept this up in public, those bank statements wouldn't just be hard evidence. They'd be my only way to reclaim the truth. I should have guessed he'd make his boldest move at the worst possible place. Somewhere crowded, where the blow would land harder than I imagined. Shall I write the next chapter? I didn't have to wait long for the public part of Daniel's plan to unfold. 2 weeks later, the school held its annual spring fundraiser banquet. Long tables lined the gymnasium, draped in pastel tablecloths. Fairy lights wrapped around the basketball hoops. The smell of catered pasta thick in the air. I tried to keep my distance from Daniel that evening, staying busy at the raffle ticket booth, but I could feel his eyes on me more than once. By the time the principal handed him the microphone to congratulate Sophie for her early college acceptance, I already had that tight knot in my throat. He started off harmless enough, praising her hard work, her volunteer hours. But then his voice shifted, and my stomach dropped. "And I just want to thank everyone who's helped make Sophie's next steps possible," he said, scanning the room before letting his gaze land squarely on me. Even those who, at first, weren't exactly sure she deserved the investment. We all have to put aside our differences when it comes to family, right? There was a soft ripple of murmurs. A few heads turned. Toward me. My chest went hot and cold all at once. He wasn't just making a dig. He was planting a seed in the minds of dozens of parents I saw every month. The same people who decided who got sympathy and who didn't in our little school ecosystem. I wanted to stand up right there, take the mic, and say, "This isn't about Sophie's worth. It's about your father's greed." But in that moment, with his daughter glowing beside him and the crowd clapping, it would have sounded exactly like the bitterness he'd accused me of. Sophie's smile faltered when she glanced at me. She didn't know the truth, and now she probably wouldn't want to hear it. He'd made sure of that. I clapped along like a good sport, but inside, a new line had been crossed. It was one thing for him to drain the account. It was another to weaponize my silence in front of an audience. That night, I decided that whatever plan I had to fix this, it couldn't involve giving him another inch of control. But my first idea to protect the remaining money, it would backfire before I even had a chance to act. Shall I write the next chapter? The Monday after the banquet, I marched straight into the bank. The sour smell of coffee from the teller counter made my stomach churn. Or maybe that was just the thought of sharing a single cent more with Daniel. I told the manager I wanted to close the joint education account immediately, split the balance down the middle, and move my share into a new account under my name only. Simple, clean. The manager, a polite woman with an over-applied floral perfume, asked me to wait while she looked into the permissions. She disappeared into a back office. I sat there rehearsing how I'd tell Josh that Mom's money was finally protected. When she returned, the first thing I noticed was how carefully she set down the papers, like she was defusing a bomb. "I'm afraid," she began, "we can't proceed with the withdrawal at this time. Mr. Reynolds placed a temporary lock on the account pending resolution of a co-owner dispute." I nearly shot out of my chair. "He locked me out of my own money?" She nodded gently, sliding a form toward me. "You'll need both owners to remove it, or a court order. Until then, no withdrawals." The irony burned. The account had been set up so either of us could move funds without the other's consent. Now, after he had done just that, I was the one frozen out. That afternoon, Daniel called. His tone was the same smug calm he'd used at the cafe. "Don't try to play banker behind my back. You forcing the issue just proves you don't trust me. You gambled with Mom's wishes, and you want me to trust you?" I snapped. He didn't rise to the bait, just said, "When you're done being dramatic, we can talk about helping Sophie. Until then, my hands are tied. And now, so are yours." And then he hung up. For the first time in this battle, I felt truly trapped. I needed leverage, real, undeniable proof of what he was doing with the money, if I had any hope of forcing the account open again. That proof came faster than I expected, and through a channel I never imagined, the bank itself. Shall I write the next chapter? It was 2 days later when my phone rang just after lunch. The number flashed the bank's name. I hesitated, thinking it might just be another canned update about the frozen account. But the voice on the other end wasn't reading from a script. "Ms. Reynolds, I'm calling regarding some flagged activity linked to your joint education account," the representative said. "Since you're a co-owner, we're obligated to inform you." I gripped the phone tighter. "Flagged? How?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second, the kind that tells you the answer isn't going to be small. Over the last 6 months, there have been multiple transfers from the education account into Mr. Daniel Reynolds' personal account. Following that, similar amounts were charged to online betting platforms and high-frequency gambling websites. Some of those are in arrears. Her words seemed to echo in the silence of my kitchen. Gambling. My mom's careful saving, spent on spinning wheels and flashing screens. "Can you send me those records?" I asked, barely trusting my own voice. Within minutes, my inbox pinged. Pages of transactions, deposits, withdrawals, timestamps. It was all there in clean black and white, impossible to dispute. I stared at the paper printouts later that night, the numbers blurring as my mind rewound through every justification Daniel had given me, every accusation he'd lobbed about my selfishness, every time I'd let him slide because we were twins. The betrayal was rancid in my throat. This wasn't an impulsive grab for tuition money. It was a long, deliberate siphoning to feed a habit he hadn't even confessed to his own wife. And that detail, that was my leverage. If she didn't know, then confronting him in front of her could shift the entire battleground. But going that route meant detonation. The kind you can't walk back from. The kind that splits a family into before and after. Still, staring at those pages, I realized I had already crossed my own point of no return. The only question now was where and how to drop the truth. Shall I write the next chapter? After reading those statements over and over, I knew I couldn't just wait for him to make the next move. Every day that passed was another chance for him to drain what was left. And the thought of Josh's senior year fund evaporating into the glow of some anonymous gambling site made my skin crawl. The decision came quietly but heavily. I was going to confront him face to face, with those statements in my hand, and I was going to do it where someone who mattered to him would hear everything. His wife, Olivia. It was a rainy Thursday evening when I knocked on their front door. The smell of roast chicken wafted out as Olivia opened it, smiling at first, then frowning slightly when she saw me clutching a stack of papers in a manila folder. "Hey, is everything okay?" she asked. Daniel's voice called from the living room. "Who is it?" "It's your sister," she answered, stepping back to let me in. He looked up from the couch, remote in his hand, eyes narrowing immediately when he saw the folder. "If you're here to fight, not now," he said, leaning back like the king of his castle. I didn't sit. Instead, I walked right over to their coffee table and laid the bank statements flat, spreading them so that line after damning line stared back at him. "Explain this," I said. My voice was steady, sharper than I expected. He glanced down, too quickly, then reached for the papers as if to stack them back up. But Olivia was closer. She reached out first and pulled the top sheet toward her. "What is this?" she asked him. His expression twitched. "It's not what it looks like." Her eyes skimmed faster, and then her face broke open into something between shock and fury. "Daniel, This is gambling? These are from the college fund? Are you serious? He started to speak again, but she cut him off. Don't you dare tell me I'm misunderstanding what mistransfer means. My God, all those nights you said you were working late. The silence that followed was thick. For once, Daniel had no smooth defense, no easy joke to run to. And in that moment, I saw it. The tiniest shift in the room's balance. The power was no longer his. But I also knew, once Olivia had this knowledge, the consequences for him wouldn't just be financial. They'd be personal and messy. And in family wars, mess had a way of splattering everyone. Shall I write the next chapter? Olivia's silence didn't last long. She stood up so abruptly that the coffee table rattled, scattering the papers further. Her hands were trembling, not with confusion, but with white-hot anger. You've been telling me for months that Sophie's future was secure, that you were working extra hours to cover the deposit, she said, her voice tightening with every word. All this time you were blowing money at some online casino? Daniel scrubbed his face with both hands, muttering something about just trying to win it back. I almost laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Win back tuition by risking tuition? That's your logic? He glared at me like I'd ruined the evening, not his own actions. You're loving this, aren't you? Coming in here to humiliate me in my own house? I'm loving nothing about this, I said, my voice low. This account was for both of our kids. I could have looked away if it was a mistake. But months of this? You made sure I'd have to find out when it was too late. Olivia was having none of his attempts to deflect. Don't make this about her, she said sharply, pointing toward me. You've been lying to me, and to Sophie. How do you think she'll feel when she realizes the deposit came from money you stole from your own sister's son? That seemed to land harder than anything I'd said. He opened his mouth, closed it, then stood abruptly. This conversation's over, he muttered, heading toward the kitchen. Olivia followed him, her voice rising. I didn't hear every word, but I caught fragments. Joint account, court, trust is gone. When I left, the rain had turned to a drizzle, my shoes soaking through as I walked to my car. I half expected a barrage of furious texts from him within the hour. Instead, the first message I got was from Olivia. I'm freezing our joint account tonight. I'll make sure you get access to whatever's left in the college fund. It was more than I dared hope for. But I also knew the wider family hadn't heard this version of events yet. And in our family, whoever told the first story usually got to define the truth. And Daniel? He was not going to let me be that storyteller without a fight. Shall I write the next chapter? The next morning, my phone lit up before I'd even poured cereal for Josh. The group family chat, the one with my siblings, our spouses, and a few nosy cousins, was blowing up. The first message I saw was from my older brother, Liam. What the hell happened last night? Daniel says you embarrassed him in front of Olivia and accused him of stealing. Another chimed in. Not cool to air dirty laundry when a kid's college is on the line. There it was. Daniel hadn't wasted a second. He'd spun it neatly, framing himself as the devoted father shamed by his selfish sister. No mention of the gambling, the months of siphoning, the bank lockout. I scrolled, my hands tightening on the phone. Message after message questioned my motives, while Daniel only posted a single vague line. It's fine. I'll figure something out for Sophie without dragging people down. That phrase, dragging people down, felt surgical. He knew how it would land with a family prideful about never turning on each other. Josh looked up from his cereal. Why are you frowning like that? He asked. I forced a smile. Nothing you need to worry about, buddy. Because how could I explain that his uncle had turned half the family into skeptics before I even got the chance to show them the truth? But I wasn't defenseless anymore. I still had the bank statements, and now Olivia as an involuntary witness. I also had something Daniel wasn't counting on: my own refusal to stay silent. That afternoon, I drafted a short, brutal message for the group chat. "Daniel, if you'd like me to share the copies of bank transfers to gambling sites, I can. Unless you'd rather stop rewriting the story now." I hovered over send, pulse pounding. Pressing it would be irreversible. But I knew if I didn't, the fallout he'd set in motion would harden into the permanent version of events. And in family wars, truth delayed often means truth denied. Shall I write the next chapter? My thumb hovered over the send button longer than I wanted to admit. In those seconds, I could almost hear the ripple my words would cause. The gasps in living rooms, the whispered phone calls between aunts and cousins, the quiet, "I told you so"s from people who'd been waiting for Daniel to slip up. And then I pressed it. The 2 blue check marks popped up under my message in the group chat almost instantly. Then the typing bubbles appeared. First from Liam, then from Daniel, then from Olivia. Liam's came through first. "Wait, gambling? Are you serious?" Olivia's followed. "She's serious. I saw the bank statements with my own eyes." Then Daniel's reply hit. Longer, angrier. "You don't understand what I was dealing with. I was trying to fix something before it got worse. Everyone loves to judge until they're the ones under pressure." By then, more siblings were chiming in. "So the money wasn't for Sophie's tuition?" one asked. Another, "You took from Josh's share?" The tone had shifted. It wasn't unanimous support for Daniel anymore. Cracks were forming in his carefully crafted narrative. I didn't gloat. Instead, I dropped 3 photos into the chat. The key bank statement pages with dates, transfer amounts, and the names of the betting sites circled in red. No commentary. The silence afterward was deafening, broken only by a final ping from Olivia. "Daniel, we'll talk later, privately." By the next morning, I heard from Liam that some of Daniel's biggest defenders in the family were already distancing themselves. And, most surprisingly, Olivia had taken steps to legally separate their accounts. But the fallout wasn't over for me. Even with the truth out, some relatives would hold on to their grudge. Not because Daniel hadn't lied, but because I had exposed it. And that reality meant figuring out not just how to protect the money from him, but how to protect myself from the endless undercurrent of resentment that would follow. Shall I write the final chapter?